This video is showing the Paris riots of 2023. In the section of the video shown, it is the police apprehending citizens that were participating in the riot and also beating them with batons. Hello, my name is Mauricio Perez Bonini and I'm going to be talking about police brutality. The research topic that I will be covering today is how racist views in the police force have significantly affected minorities in the last 80 years. The point that I'm going to be arguing about is police brutality has significantly affected minorities in the past 80 years. The NAACP was founded in 1909. Its main purpose was to help with the advancement of minority rights. They've helped with many things over the years, and some of the biggest things that they've helped with have been the advancement of the armed forces of 1948, but they've also helped with the Civil Rights Acts of 1957, 1964, and 1968. And they also did help with Brown versus the Board of Education, which caused the desegregation of schools, and they overruled the separate but equal. In most recent years, they helped with the case of Tyre Nichols' death at the hand of the police in 2023, in which they helped bring the 5 police officers who were responsible in his death to justice. As you can see, this graph shows how many civilians have been killed by law enforcement between the years 1999 and 2021. As you can see here, the number fluctuates from the 400s all the way up to the 800s. It was also shown by the graph. It mentions civilians, but it doesn't necessarily mention minorities, which is a point that I will expand upon in the next slide. As shown by this graph shows that since the start of 2013 to today, many minorities have been killed by the police in the United States. This graph also highlights how many African American citizens have been killed by the police. Even though the African American citizens isn't the most that have been killed in the past few years, they have been the most impactful on society. George Floyd, as you can see in this picture, was an African American male who was killed by Officer Derek Chauvin, who you can see in this picture. The way George Floyd was killed by Officer Derek Chauvin was Officer Chauvin's knee was on Floyd's neck, right, as you can see in this picture, and while the knee was on his neck, he was saying, "I can't breathe," which in turn, the police report says that Floyd was resisting the arrest, even though body cam footage shows that the police was just first roughing him up. And there were also passerbys who recorded the footage of George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe." Later, when his body was examined by medical professionals, they found methamphetamine and fentanyl in the system. Some of the effects of fentanyl are problems with breathing, and some of the effects of methamphetamine are erratic, aggressive behaviors, irritable, or violent behavior. These side effects could also be the reason why Floyd was like this, which could have affected the police arresting him this way. After Floyd's death, many protests happened, one of which was in Minneapolis. During the protests, the officers that were present threw tear gas and were shooting rubber bullets at the protesters. As you can see in this image, this shows one of the many businesses that was burned down by the protesters. Operation Lone Star is an unconstitutional act taken by the state of Texas. This action made Texas close its borders to stop the illegal drug trade and immigration from Mexico. This action has already caused the death of 74 minorities, and it's also injured 184 others over the time period of 29 months. This has caused many families to be separated, but this is also similar to the situation to what happened to Eloise Cobell. For example, what is said in this quote right here: "How many nights had she spent away from her beloved family and home on the Blacktail Ranch in Blackfield where she was raised?" Which explains how she was separated from her family, which is also what Texas is currently doing. There can be many solutions to police brutality, but one of them is protesting. This solution came up because there have been many protests done in the past that have been successful. Most of these have been peaceful, and they can also lead to big changes. One of the examples of a protest was by Rosa Parks, who refused to move seats on the bus, and she was promptly moved, and she was promptly arrested for it, but it also caused the boycott of the Montgomery buses, and the Supreme Court to rule that segregation on buses is unconstitutional. Limitations. There are also various protesting techniques, each with their own limitations. For example, The protest shown in the artwork, Confrontation on the Bridge, shows a group of African Americans protesting and also being scared of the dog in the picture. In the picture, the dog represents the police and the African Americans represent the group of peaceful protesters at the 1965 Selma to Montgomery marches depicted in the artwork. That's it.
All right, 2 questions for you. First up, Mauricio, how did you select the strategies you used to gather information for this?
I did similar to what I did for the group project, which was going onto JSTOR, looking up things, reading the articles a little bit. If they found a point that interested me, I would pick it.
Okay, and the other question, what additional questions popped up as you were doing your research?
So some additional questions that popped up during my research was about MLK and the many protests that happened when he was still alive. But I decided not to include them because I didn't have much time.
You're done.